What are these?
With those numbers and pictures, he said he could find anybody.
Not many people know what remote viewing is. It's a science that these guys have developed to pick information out of the ether and put it on paper to catch the bad guys. And my skills as an agent, my intuitiveness, and my kind of soulfulness helped me to tap into the serial killer's specialized art of remote viewing. I guess I use my 5 senses to catch the bad guys.
I can't pretend to understand remote viewing any more than I could play chess for Searching for Bobby Fischer very well for 8 weeks we were shooting, but I can't move chess on the chessboard now. But Orion is a remote viewer. It enables him to empathize on an extraordinary level with other human beings.
The secret about remote viewing is that there is no secret. Remote viewing is a natural ability. People can learn it readily.
In fact, I was in the remote viewing program. I was trained. I'd never had a psychic experience before in my life. I'd never done anything like this. They taught me how to do it.
In fact, you could say we were the X-Files. We were the people actually supported by the whole intelligence community during the Cold War to provide information that could not be obtained in any other way.
Target reference number 17446. Go.
My take on remote viewing is that it's a technical exercise in developing the ability to see, to have a sense of seeing into the minds of other people and into the future or into a particular case. It could be compared to being psychic. I totally believe that that's possible, that there is something beyond us, that our minds are, that we're using like this much of our capacity to see and be. So this is kind of like an out there extreme idea, but I believe it. I believe that's completely possible.
What is remote viewing? It's the ability to perceive and describe a target that is separated from you either by distance, by some kind of shielding, or by time. So in other words, you do not have what we would consider normal perceptual access to that target. You can't see, smell, taste, touch, or feel the target. You don't have any technical means like television or radio to connect you with that. You have no way of knowing what the target is by what we would consider conventional means.
You ever heard of a project called Icarus?
No.
Have you?
No.
It's agents trained to see distant locations using nothing but the mind. They call it remote viewing. Army stole it from the Soviets, Bureau stole it from the Army. They use it to track down serial killers.
For a decade, I had the opportunity to sit in the dark in a electrically shielded room with whoever the psychic of the day was. I had a job to function as a kind of psychic travel agent where I would help the visitor with me to describe and experience what was happening in a distant place.
One target at a time.
Remote viewing caters principally to the non-analytical part, where we describe shapes and forms and feelings of psychic content. So a remote viewer can describe the shape and the form and the outline and the material and the color and his feelings about a remote viewing target or target site. He's very unlikely to be able to name the object.
The whole point of remote viewing was to provide a structured technique around clairvoyance to try to make it more repeatable and to be able to teach people how to do it.
The reason you men are sitting here is because you all fit into the personality profile that best suits a remote viewer.
We are very confident that our work was just what we claim it to be, that people can learn to quiet their mind and expand their awareness and describe and experience what's happening in a distant place.
This girl is afraid. She's afraid. Afraid.
You start off when you do a remote viewing session according to this controlled remote viewing methodology by just getting a very bare, basic, fundamental notion of what the target is. Structure, land, water. Just a quick flash.
So that if you're doing a remote viewing, we encourage people to describe out loud and draw the very initial fragments that come to them, even though they don't make any sense, because we know that those initial fragments are frequently the most telling and reliable elements of a remote viewing activity.
Then you perceive the sensory elements to it, the smells, the tastes, the textures, the temperatures, the sounds, the colors, the shading, the qualities of light and interplays of light, and then shapes and the dimensional qualities. And then as you proceed, things get more and more complex, and you start adding abstract notions.
The thing that inhibited remote viewing is a great desire to be right. In order to do remote viewing, you have to be willing to be wrong, and you have to give up the strong human desire to name the object.
The idea is normal perception, of course. The brain doesn't see a red rubber ball, it doesn't see a car, it doesn't see a building. I'm sorry, we don't see those things. The brain puts those together when all of our senses report to it. What we see, and I'll use the red rubber ball, what we see are patterns of light and dark and different wavelengths of color. That's what comes into our eyes, goes down our optic nerve, and end up in the visual cortex. Colors, shades, edges, those are the kinds of things that get reported by our senses. Further reported, of course, is the sponginess and the texture and all that kind of thing, but they come in fragments. And in remote viewing, that's what you first get, are those elementary bits of perception. If a red rubber ball were the target, a remote viewer initially would get perhaps red, shaded, smooth, spongy. And then as enough information comes in, a concept starts to build in the brain. And eventually then, of course, the analytic function of the brain, the left hemisphere that does a lot of the conclusion drawing from the senses come in, finally may come to the conclusion, oh, it's a red rubber ball.
A viewer has a tendency, once she latches onto something, if I say, can you describe this target site, you may say, there's a beautiful daffodil there, I see it clearly, and the viewer at that point is done because he has had the experience of seeing something in the distance. It's the interviewer's job to say, okay, thank you for the daffodil, we've got that. What else is happening here? The CIA is not actually interested in the daffodil, but thank you very much. What are they doing in the building? What's the bigger picture? Can you look down from above and make a plan view drawing of this place? So the interviewer is very much a psychic travel agent, and the viewer has this omniscient capability to expand his awareness through space and through time and describe what exists and what's happening anywhere in the world.